Hello, people. Hello, entrepreneurs. Joe DeChara here once again with another version of Introducing. And tonight I am introducing the therapist in the attic, Mrs. Leah Leynor.
Uh-huh.
It's pretty hard to mispronounce Leynor, but how are you?
I'm good. How are you?
I'm good. I don't know why, but people, when they introduce me, they have a thing with pronouncing DeChara. Is it DeChara, DeChara? So that I could understand, but maybe I need some therapy.
Oh, maybe. Doesn't everybody?
I don't know. That's what I want to get into tonight. So let's bring people up to speed. If you don't know me and you're here by accident, I am a serial entrepreneur, CPA, and I love talking about small businesses, what's going on, how it's affecting us. Actually, the bottom line is I like to talk about how do we get our small businesses into the black, producing positive cash flow. And sometimes I run into people that could actually help us do that in ways that you might not have thought of. And Leah is one of those people. So, Leah, you want to give us a little background on what you do, and then we'll get into the whole business part of it.
So I am actually a licensed psychotherapist. So I do have a practice here in Cary, North Carolina. So I do see people all day long, all ages from 6 on up to age 68 or 70. So I see in all ages in between. And, since the pandemic and I wasn't able to be in my physical office and I had to very quickly move home and go to 100% telehealth, I'm up here on my finished third floor, which is essentially the attic. So that's, what happened. I actually became the therapist in the attic. I also own a medical and mental health billing company with my husband, and I do some consulting for small practices, usually mental health, that might be having trouble building clientele. How do they run their practice? How do you keep your schedule full? All that kinds of good stuff.
Oh, interesting. I did notice that on your website, and what we'll do is right now I have the medical billing website up there, and I didn't know that about you actually. I mean, I just met you a couple of weeks ago. You became a client, and I went on the site, and I thought actually that medical billing was you just, get your customers money, but now I'm learning that you're actually going to help people build their practices.
You can. I don't know if all billing companies do that, but being a provider myself, I understand what they go through. And it just kind of happened because, let's say I would be in some of those Facebook groups for therapists, and maybe I would post a few comments if somebody asked a question. And I noticed over time, people were messaging me privately and asking to talk. A couple of times, if they were more local, it was, hey, meet me for breakfast, meet me for lunch. I just want to pick your brain.
Right. So what I identified in you, and I think I told you this the first time we met, I said, you do therapy. You have a license to provide therapy for people. And I saw your website, and I love the reason why you got into it, which was to help people.
Mm-hmm.
Where was I going with this now? I forgot again.
You were on my website. Which one? The billing website or my therapy website?
No, the therapy website.
Oh, okay. Mm-hmm.
So we were talking. I said, you provide, this therapy counseling, which is needed, especially now. And that's what we're going to get into. But you're an entrepreneur, Leah.
I'd like to think so.
that comes as bad news to some people because I used to think there was like a virus. Why do I keep starting these businesses? So you don't stop just at. So you went from therapy, and all of a sudden now you're doing billing. Now you're going to help other therapists build their practice, and I love that because that's how our brains work.
Mm-hmm.
And you're providing that ripple, that positive vibration. So where were we? The billing. Let me get into what I really find interesting is what you were saying about you're visiting people, and I'll just let you explain what happened with COVID.
In terms of going to telehealth?
No, people's just attitude, their what they're going through. What were you telling me? You've seen so many bathrooms?
Yeah.
Because
I've never seen so many bathrooms. I think some people, right, because everybody's home, they're looking for a private place to go and have their session. And I guess, for some that might be the bathroom. So I never thought as a therapist I would see so many client bathrooms before. And I also see a lot of people sitting in their cars in parking lots. They may be at work. They may have left the house because there's other people at home. I've never gone on so many errands. All of a sudden I'll hear, oh, we're in Costco. And I'm like, oh my God, are we? I'm used to my therapy office where I go down the hall, I get people, I bring them in my office, we sit down and have the session. I never had announcements that we were in Costco before.
So yeah, when you hear what do they say, attention all Kmart shoppers?
Yeah.
I just remember that was one of the old jokes. So, and so as an entrepreneur, I do a lot of mastermind meetings.
Mm-hmm.
And what came out of that is that a lot of us would just it was like, what do they call it? Groundhog Day. Like we started to, I feel lazy, and that affects our business.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't want to get stuck in the bathroom,
No, I don't either.
Talking to clients. So what are, how do we get out of it? Maybe you could describe some of the warning signs so that people could, hey, I'm getting into this funk, and how do we get out of it, and how do we run our businesses better?
Well, that's a really good question. I think the unique problem is typically a therapist is not in the problem with their client. They usually come in, they're talking about work, they're talking about, their significant other, in-laws, friends, whatever. But we're usually removed. And yet they're coming and they're talking all day long, whether it be stuff they see on the news or the social unrest. I've heard a lot about that. I hear a lot about the election, things going on with COVID, work, right? And the interesting part is usually a therapist is not part of the problem, except we have the same problem that they do.
Wow.
And that is very atypical that we're in it with the client. What are the warning signs? Well, like you said, feeling like it's Groundhog Day. But as a therapist, I can, even though I'm the therapist, I can relate to that, right? I come up in my attic here at 7:30 in the morning usually. Sometimes I start as early as 7. And I'm not finished until sometime in the evening. Once in a while I have a break, but usually it just feels like I only just left the attic and I came back, right? I have to look at my calendar to figure out what day it is, right? So some of the signs is, do you know what day it is? Are you keeping track of your schedule? Are you on time? Are you, answering your phone call? So these are things that I might talk to my clients about, like, hey, have you had problems reading your emails? Are you answering your texts? Are you calling people back? what is it that you might not be attending to, or what seems overwhelming? And I think for different people, it could be different things, right?
Right.
I may even say, you know, when was the last time you showered? That's usually the teenagers. But
Really?
I do
But
get
we have no control over them, so.
yeah.
And Elizabeth Frederick is watching. And if anybody has any questions for the therapist in the attic, now is the time. I've had some really interesting conversations with her, and not only does she do therapy, but she's also doing stand-up comedy.
Maybe it's funny you mentioned that. I've had a couple of clients along the way, and some of them may be watching now. Many of my clients know, actually, by the way. They got separate texts or notifications from me, so if we get questions, it may be somebody who knows me who's about to hackle me to death.
Yeah, so they're gonna get a free session. That ain't gonna happen.
But I've had a couple of them ask me if I'm going to do stand-up comedy, and if I do, that they'll come to my show.
As long as you don't talk about them.
Yeah, some of them might find it funny. I don't know. I guess I'd ask their permission first.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, I think in general, right, people just don't feel as motivated. They feel tired. They feel overwhelmed. How am I going to get this done? I've heard it quite a bit more in the last 2 weeks. I know down here, the kids have already gone back to school, and it's virtual. And it seems like some of the kids are adjusting okay, and they'll get online and follow the class and interact. And then I have other parents say, my kid threw a temper tantrum and they won't do it, or they're refusing to participate, or they've gone in the house and they're hiding and they don't even want to come out.
Wow.
So I've heard a range of things. So some of them may be my actual clients, or maybe their parents may be my clients. So I'm hearing it from different perspectives.
Yeah, and so Elizabeth, she has a comment here. What does it say? It can be hard to stay on top of connecting with people. It's hard when you are home. It's when you're yeah, I think not showering is definitely a sign of something's going on.
Yeah, I mean, that's something sometimes I can pick up on if I can gently kind of say, like, hey, how are you taking care of yourself? And that's something I also focus on. Like, okay, you're doing XYZ, you're home. It is tough to get to things. I say, listen, even when I go downstairs, if I have a break, my sink is full of dishes every single time. I mean, I cannot win.
Is that you or your clients telling you?
Oh, it's all of us. Like I told you, we're in the problem. We've got the same problem, right? I just make sure to shower and get my hair done. But I do think it's been difficult.
As you're advising your clients, are you like saying, hey, I forgot I didn't take a shower today?
Nope, I'm saying, hey, I made sure to take a shower.
Okay.
They don't need to compare themselves to me or what I do, because that's not really my job to put up the measure.
Right, I understand.
But I do focus on, okay, so what are you getting done? What do you feel like you aren't getting done? Right. Some of them, I can see their houses starting to get messy in the background.
That was the other thing that I found interesting, because I guess you're getting a new glimpse of your clients, because they usually come to your office. You don't get to see their houses and their offices or their bathrooms.
That's right. I don't. So it is definitely a perspective I didn't think that I would have, but nonetheless, it's here. So you just work with what is, and this is where people are at. And so I want to meet my clients. It's important to meet people where they're at, right? So it's just focusing on, okay, what can you do for you, right? I might give them an example. Like, I get my nails done every 2 weeks. I will put my mask on. It's important. I need to step away from the house. I get that done. Something to take care of myself.
So what I also find interesting about what you do is, as a if you're doing business consulting work and stuff, I mean, that's and I think an invaluable tool that you bring to the table that people might not realize, that you have the insight, like you just could see the big picture of what's going on with them and their business.
Mm-hmm.
So I have some business related questions. Is that okay?
Okay, sure.
So my friend Elizabeth, or other people, even my family, you know, they have children, and I can't imagine what that must be like, having them there 24/7.
Mm-hmm.
And running a business must be, it's hard enough to run a business. It's hard enough to run kids. Now you're combining the two, right?
Mm-hmm.
What can people do to, like, you know, not commingle, like say, listen, I'm doing business, you're going to do, is there anything?
I mean, I think it depends on the client and what their situation is. I can say, you know, from talking to a variety of my clients, some of them, you know, if they have seen their parents, grandma or grandpa might be stopping in and helping with the kids, or helping them, you know, when kiddos getting online for school, even, or keeping another sibling occupied, etc. Some of them have tutors coming into the house. It could be for 1 or 2 hours or longer in a day. Some of them are going to, I guess down here we have like these trek out camps, and some of them are now focusing on, you know, for parents who work, and, you know, kiddo can go do virtual schooling from there.
Oh, interesting.
So I think for some people there are those options. Obviously, those options are not available to everyone. So I might say, like, okay, you know, is your spouse working from home? If you have a spouse, right? How are you guys, you know, is there a way to trade off, right? I know I don't have small kids, but I know I have my little puppy here, who's on the seat, little Remy.
Oh, let's see. Oh, yeah, Remy. Where's Remy? I forgot to introduce
This
Remy.
is the doggy in the attic, the puppy in the attic. And she keeps me company a lot for sessions. So she's with me. So some of my clients are used to talking to her right through the screen. I think it makes them happy. But, you know, I may trade off with my husband, like who's got a meeting, when does she need to eat, when does she need to go out, because I can't, you know, run her out every time she needs to go, or, you know, be fed or something like that. So, you know, it's, some of it could be, can you coordinate with your partner? You know, or how flexible is your work schedule, right? I may have a client or two that has to do a lot of their work in the evening, unfortunately, before they go to bed. So they are exhausted.
So it actually sounds to me like, and I'm making this analogy in my head, that a lot of what you do is what I do with people's bookkeeping. Which is really what you're talking. This word keeps coming up in my head, are these sequences. It's like you keep saying, okay, what do you have to do? It's like you're saying, okay, I'm putting this down on a list. Okay, what are all the things I have to do? And as long as we keep in sequence, we're going to be okay. Would that be?
Yeah. But I also say, hey, expect the unexpected, which I guess can happen in bookkeeping too, right? There can be surprises.
What the people do with the bookkeeping is unexpected.
Yeah. But, you know, I know any of my clients can tell you my motto is focus on what you can do.
Okay.
Rather than what you can't do, right? Because you might be home with kids, right? Elizabeth is correct. You may have other things that impede progress. So what is it? What do you need to do? And what can you do? And then what's left, right? Let's look at what's left. What might be some strategies or things you just have to go, like, okay, forget it. You know, can't worry about this.
Okay. Again, I'm thinking this is the same strategy for business.
Mm.
It's like, you know, focus on what you can do, what you're good at, what you can accomplish, and what you can't. You know, what you can't drives us crazy, at least me anyway, because I want to control everything. So let's talk about, so you have a full-time business,
Yes.
your husband works full-time,
Correct.
and now you decide to start another business,
Yes.
which is sort of insane.
Okay.
Because you already know, you know, it's not easy starting a business. So how did that happen? Because I love the story behind this.
Well, you know, becoming a provider and got on a bunch of insurance panels, which is no feat in itself. That's really difficult. You know, very often they reject a new provider before they accept them. So I had to learn that, you know, don't take no for an answer, and actually appeal those decisions. It took me 18 months to get on Blue Cross and Blue Shield. That was fun.
Wow.
Yeah, I had to lobby United Healthcare too. But you know, figuring out how to get around the system, right? Everything's a system. We all have different systems, family systems, business systems, whatever. Getting on the panels, now I have billing. So hiring other vendors, and my things just were not going that well. And I came home and I was like, I can do a better job. I can do this. You know, I don't need to do that with somebody else.
Just so if somebody's in your position, I mean, it's not easy running your type of practice.
No.
I mean, it's not, but now you got to get paid, and your client can't even, you're dealing with a huge insurance company. So this is sort of important.
Oh, it's very important, right? Because like Blue Cross sent me a wire that I got this morning for 42 cents. I don't know why. I don't even know what it's about.
And those are the kind of details. You're like, what was this supposed to be 42,000?
I was like, was that like a big typo? I couldn't believe they sent me 42 cents.
And so it's a lot of details. So I had no idea it was so hard just to get on the system.
Oh, it's hard to get on the system. It is difficult for people to access the system. There is a shortage of providers in the US. If you Google that up, you will come up with articles about that. And the problem, I suspect, I mean, the numbers look as though they will get worse. And my guess with COVID might be even more critical, right? So it's even not only difficult for the provider to access the system, it's difficult for many of the clients to access the system.
So, and now you're relying on an outside, so you couldn't rely on them. They couldn't get it done, and you just decided to do it yourself.
Correct. I can do this. I know how to code things. For my own practice, I actually do most of the coding myself. And you know, the main biller who works for our billing company logs in every day, and if something bounces back or something looks off, she cleans up after me. So I don't take care of the issue. She does, because I just can't. I've at least saved her the work. I've coded it first.
So when somebody first goes into, my cousin is a therapist. She got her license. Eventually, I'm actually incorporating her. She's gonna go out on her own. When do you start learning about these codes? I mean, when does it become important?
You know, what's really sad is they don't really talk about that in grad school. I learned quite a bit of the codes when I initially got out of grad school and became licensed a little bit before going into private practice, which for quite a while, right? As you're building a new business, sometimes you work two jobs so you can rob Peter to pay Paul.
Right.
So I worked in community mental health for 4 years, from 2014 to 2018. Because, you know, I wasn't always a psychotherapist. You probably saw that on my website too. My background is financial services, so it's actually business.
Which is a whole nother interview.
Yeah. But it's really important. So that's where I started to learn some of these things, because we actually had to set the codes, although we had a billing department. But that's where I started to become introduced to the whole credentialing process, getting on panels, although they had someone who pushed that garbage through. But a lot of it was just kind of learning on the job. And as I got on panels, I would just call the provider services line and say, what code do you want me to use? Or what code is allowable? Like, I literally would just sit there and call them. And some of it was just taught myself. And if I made a mistake, I found out the hard way.
So I could see now. I'm going to have to connect my cousin with you. So that's part of what your consulting is, right?
Mm-hmm.
Is
Yeah,
that
correct.
okay?
What do you need to do? Like, no one told me when I first started, okay, well, when you first start, you don't have a lot of clients, right? And so I did not realize I kept paper files. And I thought, okay, I don't see that many people, right?
Yeah.
There was electronic health records at the agency. Well, as I grew, it kind of like snowballed. And then all of a sudden, I was stuck getting all of my clients onto electronic health records. And I had to have an admin help me because it was too much work. And so that was a lesson that I wish somebody would have told me earlier. Like, hey, just doesn't matter what it costs. Just get yourself on a system. Here's how you evaluate the systems out there. Here's what's important, right? Not just HIPAA compliance. So you want it to be ONC certified. So that means it meets federal regulations, because a lot of these are cloud-based. How do they back up? Do they follow your state requirements? Like here in North Carolina, they're doing this whole thing where they want us to do, if we're on Blue Cross and we see state employees, they want us to do feeds to the system, to the state.
My head is spinning.
Yeah.
And this is what I talk about. This is the impediments. I mean, how hard is it? It's hard. It's hard enough to open up a candy store. Mm-hmm. And I'm saying, my cousin, oh my God, this is going to be, I'm going to have to dish her off to another. This is a lot of, I had no idea. Just to open and it's not. Now, what did you say? There's a shortage of providers. Do you mean therapists?
Correct. There's a shortage of psychiatrists as well.
Wow.
So very often, let's say if I refer, if someone needs to see a psychiatrist, they may run into a 3 or 4 month wait.
Wow.
To get an appointment, right? So what do you do in the meantime? So I think it's up to the provider, right, to make very good networking connections.
Okay.
Because there's a practice or two that I'm quite familiar with that I may have agreements like, hey, they send me referrals, I send them referrals.
Okay.
And they will take my clients a lot faster, usually within a week or 2, maybe 3.
Are there any, you're saying a lot of stuff I say all the time. Like, they didn't teach me this in CPA school.
Oh, heck no.
They didn't teach me how to do a bank rack. The most fundamental book. I came out, I was like, what the heck is a bank rack? Mm-hmm. So are there any like schools or anything that, I know there's like, you could go to school to learn how to do stenography or whatever. Are there any schools for people that want to open up their own practice?
I mean, my guess is there's usually websites or other therapists out there that may have online workshops. They may have YouTube videos, things of that nature.
I could see how there could be a nice size business here for you if that's what you want to pursue. Just teaching people how to run their practices. Mm-hmm.
But it's more than, right, the nuts and bolts, right? Getting a CAQH number. Oh, by the way, they never mentioned that in grad school either. So when I went, I had interned at this agency, so they knew me already. But when I went back as an employee on their outpatient team, the head of outpatient said to me, "Oh, what's your CAQH number?" And I was like, "My what? What is that? Do I need that?" And I didn't realize that it was the database where providers go and put all of their info, and all the insurance companies can access their info. That's how they get credentialed, re-credentialed.
Oh my God. So they don't really teach you about the business of being a therapist.
No.
Wow. and you know, it's like so there's a shortage of therapists. They make it hard enough to go out on your own. And so people that actually need therapy, it's like they're slaves to the machine, it seems. Is that accurate?
That's accurate. The therapists are slaves to the machine too, right? I have to run
Wow.
on time. I have to see X amount of people, or I don't make that much money, right? Um, if you don't code
Yeah.
something correctly, it'll come back. You know, you may get a denial. It may not get through your clearinghouse. That's a whole nother issue, right? Your claim goes out, but it has to go through a clearinghouse for scrubbing first.
Wow.
Then it goes to the insurance company for processing. And some insurance companies may sit on claims for a while. I got a letter from one insurance company recently that I have a client whose claim has been pending for 119 days. I don't know why.
You know, my son is an attorney. He worked for two large firms that did, I think it was auto malpractice insurance.
Mm-hmm.
And it's a machine. I mean, they would just lump all these cases together, say, oh, they were not medically necessary, and just deny them. And it became a whole administrative thing.
Right. Then there's the other issue they don't teach you in school of verifying someone's benefits, right? Not all benefits are the same. So with COVID, right?
Oh,
Aetna
God.
may be covering telebehavioral health for all of their folks across the board. So no Aetna folks have been paying copays or coinsurance. United Healthcare is only doing it for some of them. Well, you don't know who they are until you bill and see what comes back. So I've had some folks still owe their copay and some be 100% covered. So there's that kind of mess to weave through, and what's somebody's benefits. Are they using employee assistance program? How many sessions did they get? That's a whole nother ball game. That has an expiration date and off code.
See, this is the kind of business, unfortunately, and this is the kind of business. And I saw your website, and I look at it more of a calling than a business, because I'm running the numbers, Leah, and nobody's going to get rich being a therapist.
They're not.
Just seeing people, and I can understand. My cousin does it. I couldn't do it. It's like God's work. And what's disturbing is how hard they make it for you to be independent.
Correct.
You know, so one of the things, what I try to do, Leah, is make things simple for people. You know, business is hard enough. And I think that's what you're trying to do. I really appreciate, I have a new respect for therapists now.
It's hard work. You know, when a therapist comes to me and says, hey, either, I want to start a practice, or I've gone into practice, it's not going well, right? There could be an issue in building clientele, retaining clientele. Okay, well, how are you getting your clients? Are you being picky, or are you just letting them online schedule and taking whoever? Are you throwing it against the wall and seeing what happens, right? Any of my clients can tell you, I don't do online scheduling. I refuse. You have to pass me, the gatekeeper. So all new clients get an interview on the phone. Like, I talk to them first. I say, hey, I chat with everybody before you get on my schedule. And then we kind of see if it meshes. If not, then, I can give you some referrals.
Right. Not everybody's going to resonate with you.
That's correct. They don't. But when they come to me and I say, you know what? We go into this profession with good intentions, and we want to help, and we want to be authentic and genuine. And my clients know I have a rule. I will never ask them to do something I wouldn't do myself. I don't even assign books. If I give someone a link to a video, I've definitely watched it first. So, I can test you, right? But I tell clinicians, you know what? Here's the sad part. You're a business person first. You're a therapist second.
Wow.
And I think that's where people can go off the track if they're trying to start a practice. be in practice, things like that. It's like, hey, I'm trying to be out here and help people. I'm like, yeah, well, it's not just about that. You got to get the nuts and bolts done first. Know how you, like you said, the sequence, how you're going to run the system. And I even, to move my schedule along, all my clients know I set a timer. It goes off and chimes 10 minutes before your session's about to be up. You will hear it in the background. It's your warning. You've got 10 minutes to wrap it up, ask questions, reschedule, blah, 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 plan. When it goes off the second time, your session's over.
You have to, because now you got another client waiting.
Correct. Not all clinicians do that, though. They may have problems running over time or not being on time.
Yeah, okay. I got it.
I'm
basically running the business.
But people know my clients don't wait more usually, and if any of them are listening, they can feel free to correct me, but not usually more than 5 or 10 minutes.
Okay, listen, I like to we're almost at 40 minutes, which is like already, you're talking about we're 10 minutes over what I usually, only because, I like people to watch this episode will go up on YouTube. It'll be evergreen. And maybe the next time you could tell me why we're like that. If anything's over a half hour, I'm not watching it on YouTube. But you gave us some excellent advice on mental health and also starting your business. So if you want to, and this is, I'm going to put this up here because I just learned that I can post. It's really cool. Learning the codes is paramount to getting paid. So if Brianne, my cousin, if you're watching this, you're going to have to learn the codes.
That's right. You're going to have to learn the codes, learn how to play the game.
Yes. So, okay. Parting words of wisdom, and what kind of advice would you give somebody like my cousin that wants to start their own practice?
Well, know who you are as a therapist, right? How do you work? How do your sessions run? Know how to lay it out. I always tell people what to expect up front. So know how to set expectation, which again is like a business thing, right? Know who your clients are. Who do you serve well, right? Who do you mesh with well, as opposed to just taking anybody you can schedule. Let's see if this works out. So looking to build quality and figuring out, do you have everything in place for what you need to do? And then it's finding clients. That's probably a whole nother show. My phone didn't ring for 6 months, so we can always talk about how I fixed that.
I think, that would be a great topic just for people that are going into this. I might start specializing in this because now you just open up the door to opportunities for me. Because there's a big gap out there and it's about teaching people. Now I got to teach my cousin your web address so that she can go there and learn.
But it's how do you get clients? What's important? Referrals are important. Well, how do you make those connections? I just took $500 and I sucked it up. And, to start getting referrals, I went to a big family practice and I catered lunch for all the providers a few years ago. And they practically filled my practice, and they still do.
And this is what makes you an entrepreneur. You're not just a therapist. But we are going to we're going to do a show just based on how to, because that's key. You don't have clients, you don't have a business. So who would you like to connect with right now to get your Reliant practice going?
Well, I would say, mental health providers who either need to credential and get on panels, need to start their practice, or want to shore up their practice, or even grow their practice, because, I'll be, and as you know, Joe, I'll be adding new clinicians to my practice this year. And at some point I will stop taking new clients altogether. So there'll be a hard stop, but all my people know, if you're already on my schedule, I don't abandon people. You'll get to stay on. We'll figure it out. But, how to set up your billing. Do you have your electronic health records? Even if it comes down to it, how do you write your clinical documentation? Do you have a system down? Because I can tell you, I write a note, I can get one done in less than 5 minutes. But I write it the same way every time.
Right.
I plug in the specifics to the person, but it has the same format.
It sounds like it's a mirror of how I do things. I have my template IRS penalty abatement letter. So would you be willing to offer somebody like my cousin a free consultation just to see if, because I'm sure anyone that's in this business, because you can do the billing for them, you could consult with them, and basically, the two keys, you need sales and you need cash flow for any business, and you're the person for that, right?
Yes. Well, my background in business, I was in sales and marketing. So,
all right.
That's actually my background prior to becoming a therapist. So I guess it's like the two coming together.
I could see the universe is getting in sequence. So, Leah, thank you so much. This has been fun.
Absolutely.
Very valuable information. Contact Leah. It's reliantpractice.com, right?
Yep. They won't find the therapist in the attic yet, but I'll develop that website.
And coming soon, the therapistinttheattic.com. You got the domain, right?
Yes, I did get the domain already.
Okay. Okay. Looking forward to that one.
Awesome.
All right. Over and out, folks. That's our story. We're sticking with